It's a really strange day, actually, because this is the first day on Harry Potter 7 where we're saying goodbye to characters who've been with the series right from the very beginning.
It was Richard, Fiona and Harry's last scene of the film, and they were the first people who'd been on it the whole way through to actually finish.
This isn't just goodbye, boy, is it? This is farewell.
Me and Harry and Fiona and Richard, we all started together 10 years ago, and in the last 10 years, I then have since gone on to do stage work with Richard, and Harry is actually on stage at the moment with Fiona doing Mother Courage at the National. So it's quite a nice sort of journey that family has been on off-screen as well as on.
Somebody has to pay for the frustration, dear. The Dursley stuff was the very first stuff ever that was shot at all. I never thought for a minute it would span 10 years. I mean, I was a redhead when I started. And Dan Radcliffe was about this big. He was like a bewildered little schoolboy.
What's been, of course, very exciting is seeing the children grow from children into these splendid adults, actually. They're a very nice bunch. Don't just ignore those terrible people.
I was just to see
They're terrible people. They should never be on any cameras.
We kind of kept a relationship going, which has been so nice, and from an acting perspective, Fiona's helped me so much, and so has Richard and Dan as well. Just kind of being with these people to constantly inspire you.
I've enjoyed Harry Melling, and I visits with Richard Griffiths whenever we meet, and he tells me whatever stories he's accumulated in the time. He's a brilliant, brilliant raconteur, so a lot of our life is spent intense listening to Richard's fantastic stories. So I will miss that.
Well, Richard was always very keen that there be a series called The Dursleys, and
yes.
we're still standing by.
I have known them since I was 10, and now being 20, it has been a huge part of my life, and something that hopefully I haven't taken for granted.
This is farewell. I mean, this is forever. I'll miss him immensely.
The flight from Privet Drive is a thrilling ride and has been a really complex logistical challenge, not just from a visual effects point of view, but from a stunts point of view, from locations, from design, all coming together.
We've got 7 bikes in total.
How you doing, my wee pal?
I'm good, man. How are you?
This is the Hagrid's bike from movie number 7. It's modelled on the bike that we used on the first Harry Potter film. We've basically dressed the whole thing up to look like a 60s bike and a 60s sidecar, so there's an awful lot of work being done on the sidecar, reshaping it, remodelling it.
I'd have to say, it would be a wonderful way to travel in a sidecar. I love being in that. I'm yet to travel more than about 3 metres in it, but those 3 metres were some of the funnest I've ever had. It was great. I loved it. It'd be a great way to come to work in the mornings.
For all the motorbikes in the opening sequence, we've got a number of requirements. We've got stunt motorbikes, which involved trains, wire rigs, and the ability to fly a motorbike. And we've got the motorbike that has to turn upside down in the tunnel. But for that, we had to build a motorbike that we could roll upside down with somebody on it. And it has to be, obviously, a stunt person. Dan has to be able to fall out of the sidecar and hang underneath it.
3, 2, 1, go.
A lot of the stunts in this scene have been done by Mark Maley, who's my stunt double, who's fantastic. And he was going through the Dartford Tunnel in England, standing up in the sidecar of a motorbike going at sort of 40 miles an hour. I would love to be able to take the credit for it, but unfortunately I can't. Mark's been doing great work for me. And also a plus side of having Mark doubling you is that he's legendary for having a very, very nice bump. And it's great because he's doubling me in this scene. I've turned out looking very, very good, as it turns out.
Most complicated, I would probably say, is the motorbike chasing, and basically that involved going in between traffic at quite high speeds. I think we were doing around 30 to 40 miles an hour. So that was really, really exciting and very different to do.
This is day 3 in the Liverpool-Queensway Tunnel. It's more practical to film in a 4-lane tunnel because we can get cameras, cars, other vehicles in a 4-lane tunnel, and then we create a CG wall for the 2-lane tunnel.
On top of that, we've got the crash where they land at the Burrows in the end. And for that, we're building a motorbike that can crash into the reed bed, into the water, with somebody on it and somebody in the sidecar.
It's similar to sort of a log flume ride. We get a big plume of water as we go into it.
The thing I'm most proud of is that the work that we've done blends together so seamlessly that a lot of people don't realise that it's a practical effect or it's a visual effects effect, because they just accept it that that's the story on the screen. That's what we're trying to achieve, and I think that's what we've done.
The wedding started with a tent, and Stuart is absolutely passionate about tents, so he thought it complemented the exterior of the Burrows.
We've done a few tents, but then when you go back as far as we do, we've done quite a lot of everything, actually. The wedding tent is, I hope, rather beautiful. It isn't a modern contemporary tent. It's very Edwardian in its shape and its silhouette, and rather elegant.
Take 2.
David's didn't want stripes, they wanted a plain colour. So we ended up with the whole thing built up with the exterior of the Burrows being painted purple and the tent being a sort of pale grey with purpley tassels and trimming and a purple carpet.
It is very elegant and it looks beautiful. You know, they've got the lights that hover and the tables look good. It is definitely a French influence.
I'm Mr. Weasley.
Enchanté.
Enchanté.
It's really quite exciting. It actually feels like a party, really, in there. It's a great set.
You can get going on the tent.
Tent?
Protego Total.
Where am I supposed to find a tent?
There's a very modest little tent that the 3 heroes journey throughout this film in, and it is supposed to be that tent from the World Cup in Harry Potter 4.
Home sweet home.
We had established the size of the exterior tent in the 4th film, but the interior is different. We didn't have the ritzy lining that we had in the World Quidditch tent.
Did you think we were going to be staying in a 5-star hotel?
That was just a very simple set indeed, actually, and Eduardo Serra photographed it beautifully. The lighting is very beautiful, very subtle, varied from day to night and season to season. It's amazing how much richness and interest you can get out of a couple of sheets of canvas, basically.
I get it.
New set, new problems, new fun, and it's bigger than normal. Today is the all-night cafe where Harry, Ron and Hermione think they've got away from the Death Eaters. The Death Eaters appear and a big wand fight ensues.
They were always given a sequence or a general scene, and they say we want some kind of wand fighting. So we try and put together some kind of duel.
All right, so let's just go through a half-speed rehearsal, guys.
The cafe scene was quite complicated because it was quite a timing issue. Hermione comes out from behind her hiding place, goes down, waits a few beats, comes up and goes down again, and it was trying to get the movements exactly right, plus explosions going on in your face.
This
spell throwing. It's a totally visual thing that you have to make up. You can't actually see the spell. That's something I'll be adding in later.
If you're doing a sword fight routine, you use the swords and you can connect, but when you're actually doing a wand fight, you're not actually connecting with anything. So that makes it difficult.
We do have to rehearse things and set them out.
People visualise in their minds, if you're being blasted by a wand spell, you're going to take a hit and you're going to go back violently, which happens with most of the spells. There are occasions where a spell might hit somebody in the shoulder, so it's very similar to when we do bullet hits on films. We'll just react with their shoulder and then just carry on fighting.
It goes, that's it. So if you're there, and you've got it from there. Actually, yeah, then that's the one.
We always go all out, put everything into it, and then we can always bring it back slightly. Because if you half do something, it just doesn't look real, you know, so you have to kind of throw yourself in.
So it's almost like you've got to make that really fast. Do you know what I mean? And then relax into it once you go back. So it's here.
So fast, you're doing exactly the same movement you are, 10 times faster.
Right, I put
it's like someone's making
there.
Being more critical, and I think the better you can give the public a real performance, I think the more you'll get back from them.
Got it! Cut!
We've had some crazy things fill in for whatever the creature's supposed to be. You know, sticks, tennis balls, dots, numbers.
Very good, that's lovely. Okay, let's go one more. Okay, it's good.
You know, it's different every time. We have to be quite careful though, because sometimes it gets a bit absurd and then you just start laughing and you can't really take it seriously.
Action.
It's quite a weird concept really, just to kind of react to something that's just not there at all. Especially when it's quite an animated kind of thing, like Dobby.
And Jason, you need to move to your left a little.
Okay.
Blocking Dobby.
Oh.
Like I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know
it was here, but
I know what you're saying.
They've really changed the way they do that now. They've got these doubles to stand in for these creatures and do the lines, so you're actually talking to a person.
I've had to supply some people today to kind of be doubles stroke stand-ins for Dobby and Creature, which is quite interesting.
Come over here. I just want to try anti-gravity before I just come.
Creature! Yeah. Because, of course, also we've got not only the short actor in there, we've also got somebody else providing the voice of the character, so they're working as a team. Dobby?
I enjoy playing Dobby. That said, I never really take full credit for the character, since it's a large part of its character comes from its movement, which I can only suggest and they can realise. When I did it in the second film, it was very much me in a sound studio working with the film that had already been shot, with a ping pong ball on a stick, which was going to be me, and offering up suggestions, you know, how he might move, how Dobby might move. Whereas this time, Diane, my collaborator, comes on and she's closer to the size of Dobby, so she then gives a scale to what I've suggested and proposed.
I'm a Dobby, so the moves, isn't it? He's Creature, but I'm better, because I'm younger.
She's the nicer one.
Yeah, you're the horrible one.
I'm the grumpy, old,
He's the
miserable
horrible one, isn't he?
git. That's
Grumpy
me.
old.
Oh yeah, we're really enjoying it. Yeah.
Yeah, really brilliant.
It allows David Yates to sort of direct the whole scene with all the integral parts.
Yeah, you're right. And you want me to notate this in my head? Take me a little moment just to retain what he's saying.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
In the past, you would shoot the stuff with nothing in there, and it's harder to perhaps get sort of real interactions between the live action performers and the 3D characters and create an electricity between the two elements.
Do you need me to vocalise at all? Like, just to go,
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah,
Now that the performers act in the scene, I think you get a far more vibrant exchange from the live-action actors and gives you a more potent sequence.
Who was it, Creature?
Mundungus Fletcher. If you can have another actor on set to interact with, I mean, it helps your performance no end. And, you know, hopefully when the audience sits down to watch the film, it will be a seamless character interacting with the actors and prove to be very realistic.
Harry Potter.
I've played some wonderful characters throughout the whole series of films.
Swish and flick. Everyone?
In the first film, I've played Professor Flitwick and also the Goblin Bank Teller.
Does Mr. Harry Potter have his key?
And then, as the films have gone on, again, I played Flitwick, and now in the final film, I'm able to play Griphook as well. The role of Griphook was something that I always had at the back of my mind. Boy, I'd love that character. There is no place safer than Gringotts. Griphook has so much more depth to him that I've ever been able to get into my work as Professor Flitwick. And so I went in and read for David Yates and our casting director and gave it my best shot. David left a message to tell me that I had the part. And it was funny, I was sort of in shock. I just sat there for a minute. It was like, great, okay, here we go. The journey commences. Better, because I haven't had a chance to suss it out properly then. That's why I want to, yeah. I suppose I'm stretching my acting muscles a little bit farther than I have been able to in previous films, because he's a very much darker character and quite a multi-layered character.
What we're going to do is we're going to put a ball cap on you, and Adrian's going to do that, and he'll be the nose man, so he's going to watch your nose at all times. And we'll ask you all the way through it if you're okay, and it's thumbs up, not too high, because of
okay. What signals like if I'm thirsty? The makeup is obviously a very important part of what I do and the creation of that character. It's not just down to me, it's a team effort to bring him to the screen.
We're doing a makeup test on Warwick Davis, because he's all we could get at short notice. And for Griphook.
With Griphook, we looked at what we did on the first picture with the film Troyer. He had a particular look, so we took that look and we transposed that look onto Warwick.
Contrary to popular belief, I don't look like a goblin in real life. So without all of this and without these two here and all the other people that go to put the makeups together, I wouldn't be able to do the work that I do, because I don't look right. I'm too good looking.
Makeup is only so good up to the point where a guy's got to operate it with his facial muscles and work through it and everything.
It's for example, I know my own face, so I know, you know, if I raise an eyebrow, how that looks, basically. But on the character makeups, you have to learn kind of how much of an eyebrow raise you have to do for it actually to read and register as an eyebrow raise on the character's makeup, for example. So that's kind of what I'm still learning about.
When you get somebody who really can use a makeup, can perform it, your work just improves and improves and improves. And so I've been very fortunate working with Warwick.
It is important you don't rely on the makeup. You've got to find that character within you. But then to have gone through 3 hours of makeup and then stand in front of the mirror and see yourself transformed, it's a wonderful feeling. And you know, I feel very privileged to be able to kind of portray these characters that I have in these films. Hello! Ready for the office.
Bloody fools. What were you thinking coming here? Have you any idea how dangerous it is?
You're Aberforth, Dumbledore's brother.
Harry's had so many challenges in his journey, his odyssey to kind of beat Voldemort, and the biggest is this moment with Aberforth.
Do yourself a favour, boy. Go home. Live a little longer.
In a way, Aberforth is almost like the last test. It's like he's giving me another chance to turn back and to pack it all in, actually. We're never going to win this. And it's the moment when Harry decides to go, if I don't carry on with this, what am I going to do?
It was quite interesting because, in a way, you were working on
blank canvas. It's this kind of guy who lives underground, he's very basic, he's of the earth. But once you're informed about the childhood memory of what happened with his brother, you play it through a memory and an emotion, and you hope that all this will then present it visually.
The makeup, I think, on Kieran, it's the best makeup that's ever been done on any of the films. It's astonishing how to make him look that much like Michael Gambon, while still there being just enough subtle differences for it to be a brother rather than an identical twin.
It's very hard to find yourself in there, you know, 'cause it's a fairly heavy disguise. Comes in 3 parts, really. What they've done is they've made me some little eye bags just in here that they then push into the skin, and then they've given me, which you can't see from the eyes up, to give me this big forehead that Michael has, that I don't. And the only other thing is a little nose, because mine's a bit crooked and thinner. So in fact they've just added some features that then in a way transforms the whole face.
The eyes are what do it. Because Michael Gambon, actually, you don't really think about it at the time, but he has very distinctive under his eyes. It's very, very specific to Michael. That was what really sold it to me. Kieran just wore it beautifully, and he didn't let it affect his speech, didn't affect his movement. You just see somebody looking very natural.
The fineness of the work they do, it's really special. So it was a great thrill to be asked to be in it.
Jani Tamimi, who I work with on these 4 films, is she's a storyteller.
It looks dangerous, and that was the idea.
She's interested in the kind of aesthetic of things, but she profoundly is interested in story and character. That's where she starts. She starts with story and character with costumes.
It's really nice and elegant. First, I start from the script, because it's no costume without a character, and the characters are the one of the script. And of course it has been an evolution.
One of the great things for me as an actor is that Lucius has changed so much from the beginning. I think Lucius, by the time we get to the climax of the 8th film, has become a shadow of his former self.
Look at me!
It's not a very happy journey for Lucius, and you don't need to look very hard to see what's happened to Lucius.
He lost a lot of his grandeur, and he actually became much more human than in the other film, because something in him is breaking, and we had to reflect that in the costume by making him a lot more dirtier and damaged and less perfect than he used to be.
I always find Neville's clothing definitely helps me get into character, just because you know, I don't like to dress like this when I'm at home. When he started out, it was very clear that his gran dressed him. Neville's always been, you know, buttoned up, right up there, tie, shirt to the top, robe on, very prim, very proper, and all the clothes have always been like 3-4 sizes too big. Wearing a fat suit for about 6 years, that was pretty tough. The fat suit sort of did help me get into character in a way, because Neville was always described as round-faced and etc. But it was so warm and it was very difficult to move sometimes, and it did distract me sometimes in that respect. It's quite strange actually, because it's different this year. Some of the clothes are a bit cooler than normal. Neville's really come along a bit. This year they've gone for the cardigan as sort of a leader. Like in Order of the Phoenix, when Harry Potter wore a cardigan as opposed to all the jumpers and tank tops the other students were wearing, it sort of gave the idea of someone who's a teacher.
Expecto Patronum.
Lupin had it in Prisoner of Azkaban when he was teaching, so Neville's sort of become the resistance leader now, so he's got a cardigan on. And then, obviously, battle-weary as he gets more and more, and this one, his clothes become more ripped, and he just doesn't care, he doesn't care anymore. There's far more important things at hand. Part 2 is going to be a bit of a mix of it this year, so it's quite cool.
And that's his character. So he has come along quite a lot.
Yes.
You can see.
Yes.
Snape has taken over Hogwarts. He's become headmaster. He's turned it into a pretty grim place. All the magic's gone. It's like a prison.
And Harry, who's their hero, hasn't been around to kind of be a figure for them.
Harry Potter was sighted in Hogsmeade.
And so when Harry returns to Hogwarts, like, everyone is just hyped. This is what we've been waiting for.
Should anyone attempt to aid Mr. Potter, they will be punished.
I want you to listen to what Alan is saying, and I want you to be very afraid about what he's saying.
Harry sneaks into the Great Hall and kind of chooses this moment to unveil himself. It is a huge scene.
Take 3.
Jim Broadbent and Miriam Margolyes and Gemma Jones, everyone came back, which is wonderful. And Alan is brilliant at that speech.
Any person found to have knowledge of these events who fails to come forward
There's a speech in the Great Hall. The way Alan says a couple of words
will be treated
like equally guilty.
Equally guilty.
And Maggie was behind him, and I could see Maggie thinking, just get on with it, will you? But there's a way that Alan uses words and the space between words.
If anyone here has any knowledge of Mr. Potter's movements,
which you hang on every breath and every pause,
I invite them to step forward.
And I think Alan's wonderful in the way that he's kind of made Snape who he is.
Now.
I've always enjoyed working with Alan. I mean, the way he thinks about scenes, the way he breaks them down, it's quite inspirational. So I think that sort of forced me to raise my own standards.
In many ways, Harry, of all the characters, I'd say, is the most difficult to play. He is the one who is the least defined in terms of his personality. And I think Dan has brought a real truth to the performance, and he really considers the reason behind each of Harry's actions. And finally, in this film, Harry steps out and confronts the man who he's loathed for so long.
Yeah, he really kind of steps up, and yeah, he's a real hero, so it's great to see that.
And I've got proper action hero dialogue.
It seems, despite your exhaustive defensive strategies, you still have a bit of a security problem, Headmaster.
And then I turn around, and the cavalry come in behind me, and then I turn back and I say,
I'm afraid it's quite extensive.
And it's quite a cool, it's almost like he planned it. I like moments like that. You know, I won't get to play action heroes forever. It should be one of those moments that sort of just rouses you.
I think the final battle in the second film for the Deathly Hallows is really going to be our greatest triumph in terms of the work that we've achieved. In the past, we've worked with a lot of miniatures, but we've built the whole of Hogwarts in the computer this time, so we're not using any miniature work at all.
We've got this digital version of Hogwarts, which allows me to go anywhere within the school.
Come on!
And anywhere outside it, and gives me tremendous freedom to move the camera in and around the place when it's being destroyed. That was quite useful.
But it's a phenomenal amount of work, therefore, that we have to create, as the school itself is under attack.
Protego maxima fianto duri repello inimico.
So part of the story for the defence of Hogwarts was that the teachers at the school would produce what is essentially the mother of all shields that would protect the whole of the school. We spent a lot of time designing the look of this. It was important that it felt organic, but also we didn't want to end up with something that was visible once the shield itself had finished. And that was a design process that we went through to establish what this shield looked like. The idea was that as the Death Eaters would launch their spells, you would then be aware of its presence again once the spells started exploding on the shield. And there was a whole progression of the deterioration of the shield. You saw the weakening of the shield, so you began to get this idea that fine cracks were appearing in the surface. We were keen to make it look like it was actually burning, with the actual shield itself changing its state from being sort of solid and glassy into something more materialistic. And as the shield itself is collapsing, pieces of the burning shield are falling down to the school. And I thought that was beautifully filmed and worked very well.
In all the years we've been here, obviously we've seen some pretty amazing sets, but for attention to detail and just grandness, the Room of Requirement this year was incredible.
The Room of Requirements is a really fun space. It's a real achievement. It's in one of our biggest stages, and there's a mountain range in Wales called the Brecon Beacons, and I said to Stuart, make this the Brecon Beacons of the Room of Requirements. It needs to go on and on and on, like this great big mountain range of discarded magical objects.
Every corner has a beautiful top shot, wide shot angle, but if you look up here, these stacks are only a third height, so we'll go another 2-3 times these heights. It's an amazing set because it's probably one of the only sets that has ever been created only by props.
There is no set. Well, actually, there is some set, but it's pretty buried. In fact, I'm struggling to point out a piece to you. There's a piece. Look, if you can pan around to the top of the pile of chairs there, you see that it is the same vaulted structure that the smaller version of this set was. So there is architecture, but it's 65 feet above us.
You can just see under here the cores, which are basically scaffolding frames, like the one you can see over to my right here, which are clad in just plywood and painted black, and then that provides a very convenient space for the props guys to attach if they're dressing, because obviously it needs to be secure and safe.
They literally filled it with just literally like more stuff than you can ever imagine, like old like World War II trunks and chairs and tables and glasses. I mean, it was instruments that don't exist.
Because we've been shooting 6 films before, over 9 years, we have amassed a great deal of props and furniture.
We're at an auction room about 15 miles away from the studio that we come to regularly. Today we're shopping for a variety of sets, so we enjoy just looking here and seeing things. We get inspiration for things that you don't know you want until you see them. We have got 72 containers of props from previous sets, and they're quite empty now. A lot of them are here, and I think it'll be fun for kids to recognise things that they've seen previously in films, and, well, it's ended up in the Room of Requirement.
So this is the Room of Requirements scene. It's high energy, it's big action. What can go wrong?
Spells fly left, right and centre. Crab can't quite control himself and manages to set the bloody place on fire.
The sequence starts with us climbing up to the top of the Room of Requirements where all these flames are flicking up. Tom pretty much did most of that himself.
Everyone off straight away, please.
We had to rig that so that all of the furniture was shaky and wobbly while they were climbing, but of course was completely safe.
We just want to make some of it a bit more rickety, so as they're climbing up, it moves a bit when they get their foot on it.
You're right, it does look high. Once we got up there, they had this incredible thing where we're standing on a table, and then all of a sudden they just literally took off 2 of the legs, so it just pivoted on itself almost.
Right foot forward, looking, wobble, wobble, and then you're going to turn to your left and grab, okay?
3, 2, 1, drop.
Yeah, you're preempting it. You're looking at it before it goes.
They would go 3, 2, 1, go, and even before they said go, it's sort of grabbing hold of the thing saying, don't let me fall. And actually, I was failing miserably. I didn't think I could do it, and I was like, this is not going to happen.
It's a thing they're not used to doing, and they're still very apprehensive about doing it. It's just, you know, they don't want to try not to anticipate the table going. The look in their faces, that is genuine.
And then one of the great stunt guys came up to me and said, it looks like you're not trying. Really, really have a go for this one.
3, 2, 1, drop.
And yeah, we got the shot in the end.
That's it. Good. That's the one.
It's brilliantly shot, so it looks natural. But of all the years here, that was the most terrifying stunt. I'm smiling now, only because my feet are on the floor, yeah.
Meanwhile, Ron finds 3 broomsticks, and it becomes an aerial chase.
That was actually a really cool scene because we were all kind of on brooms, so it was good to be back on the broom actually.
It's the first time in a Harry Potter film that 2 people have been on a broomstick together. We call it the rescue rig. Just had to reinforce the back of the broomstick a little bit so we can get 2 people's weight on there.
This rig comes straight past me, and basically we link arms, and as he goes past, he pulls me onto the back of the broom.
And they're just on their way out. The whole room is about to combust completely, and they're just about to make it. And they get through the doors, and they crash land. The challenge of this is it's a real-time stunt, it's a real impact on the floor. It's using a broomstick that's also going to get entwined on them.
A 2-person stunt it's always more difficult because there's someone else involved, and so you're not just thinking about your own self-preservation, you're thinking about someone else as well.
They've done fantastic, and they've not kicked each other in the face, which is good, but they have landed on each other a couple of times.
You kind of feel a bit bad, but that's the way these things go. But it's sometimes more fun doing it with 2 people.
Out of 6 takes, we got 3 or 4 big favourites, and it'll be a hard choice to choose the best.
I really liked the scene in the courtyard with the Voldemort monologue and Neville stands up to him.
Action! It's as if it's over, and it's kind of like there's no point in fighting anymore.
Who is that? Hagrid's carrying. Neville, who is it?
It was really my first scene, and then we came into the studio and we went straight to the courtyard set for a rehearsal.
Because Rafe's going to zap him if he doesn't do it.
And Rafe was there, and I met him. It was the first time I'd spoken to him. But he put me at ease anyway, very quickly, and we had a really good time at rehearsing. And then we went back inside, got all the hair and makeup, with all the blood and the bruising and the ripped clothes. And then we went back outside to the courtyard, and it was just so different to what we'd just rehearsed on hours before. It was really daunting at first. I mean, there was fire blazing, there was the bodies of students laid just across the courtyard.
All these limbs kind of hanging out of the rubble. Just hundreds of Death Eaters in one place.
And we got the perfect weather for it. It rained and rained and rained, so it really looked fantastically desolate. And of course, he who cannot be named does this fantastic, vicious, victorious speech.
Harry Potter is dead! No! No!
In this giant confrontation, Rafe was let loose, and he was utterly terrifying.
Stupid girl!
We shot it for weeks, and you never quite knew who he was going to turn on, what he was going to say, even.
Well, I must say I'd hoped for better.
It kept an entire courtyard full of extras and actors on their toes because he could pick at you at any moment.
And who might you be, young man?
He'd laugh at me in this way where he was sort of just ridiculing me and as if I was this just pathetic nothing.
His name is Neville Longbottom. Is this truly the best Hogwarts has to offer?
And it was just so effective. And I was just so angry at Voldemort that it was very, very easy to get into the character. I'd like to say something.
And he's battered in this story, and he's bruised, and he's broken.
Doesn't matter that Harry's gone.
But he gives a speech about why they're not going to give up, which is suicidal.
He's still with us.
It's kind of like He must be insane. Everybody knows he's going to be killed. But yeah, and it was lovely to see him how to do that, and he did it really, really well.
They didn't die in vain.
Matt's put so much into these films, and he's been so good, and he does brilliantly in that scene.
But you will. Harry's heart did beat for us. For all of us.
And he inspired everyone to fight.
This is not over!
That was awesome because... I just love the idea that anyone can do these great things. They just have to have courage. They don't need to be special.
Let me get this straight, Professor. You're actually giving us permission to do this?
That is correct, Longbottom.
To blow it up? Boom!
Boom!
He couldn't even hold his frog together on the first film. So to go from someone who loves frogs to someone who starts slicing up snakes, he's certainly turned into quite a warrior and head of the resistance at Hogwarts, which is a very brave feat for Neville to do.
He beats the bad guy, he saves the day, and that's what's driving him along, just instinct to do the right thing. To be able to play that over the last 10 years, that evolution of a character, has been incredible.
It's incredible to see what all of these characters can do when they're pushed to the very edge. In Mrs. Weasley's case, one of her children is about to be taken away from her, and you see Mrs. Weasley in this incredible fight with Helena Bonham Carter.
It's a great moment in the book. It's a real crowd-pleasing moment.
Who's next?
It was a great pairing, and I don't think we could have anticipated that when we cast them initially. They were dueling when the camera wasn't on. They were having fun, playing it out, and having a laugh.
Oh, it was lovely working with Helena. She's such fun. You know, right from the day one when we came in, I said, "You're gonna get it, you are. You're gonna get it in a couple of weeks."
It's great that she kills me. I feel very honoured that she kills me. Bellatrix doesn't expect her to be so good, so she's caught off guard.
It's good to see two girls have a fight. They worked very hard for that, and we done that in an afternoon. We rehearsed some moves for a few days, and we showed it to them, and they put some of their own stuff in there.
I think Mrs. Weasley's is a little bit rustier, and, you know, and she's not as fit, and so her style probably isn't as fluid and dramatic as Bellatrix's style. When we're doing it, of course, nothing's coming out of the end, so it's hard to kind of react. That's why we had to have the first assistant shouting, "Block, 1, 2, 3, 4.
You've got to make sure that you do it with real venom. You just have to go for it.
Oh, come on,
You have to just play. I love seeing actors just explore and play, and in it you'll find something that's really interesting.
That's the sword fence, isn't it?
And I'll just say, that's not good, that's great, that's really interesting, that's completely weird and inappropriate, but that's fantastic. They really enjoyed that.
Let's go through that from the top.
It was really quite something to watch, and quite scary almost, because you could see the tenacity in each of their faces.
Helena and Julia are both two of the nicest actors in the whole industry, and then as soon as they real action, you think, bloody hell, they're going to kill each other.
It was really great because you don't really expect to see this motherly character to have this aggression.
I loved the fact that she says, "Not my daughter, you bitch." I loved it. And you would expect Bellatrix to be the most powerful, the most fit, because she doesn't care. You know, that gives you a certain strength.
Bellatrix doesn't really get this family. She just feels, what are you on about? You know, you've got a spare, you've got other children. Why are you so hurt? You know, because she's got no conception of love, you know. She loves inflicting pain, and that's her only joy.
This shows what a powerful witch Molly Weasley really is. And so I could take on anyone now. I think really I should have defeated Molly. But anyway, I left that to others.